Here, at the crossroads of the Arctic Circle and the Atlantic Ocean, lies a beautiful no-man's land at the edge of the world. You might think that this is one of the most inhospitable places on the Earth to exist, but in fact, the surprising evidence of life is beneath this frozen landscape. But for a short time each year, the long, dark Icelandic winter releases its grip. As green returns with spring, something truly remarkable emerges from the ice. Its bones perfectly preserved by the frozen temperatures of Iceland. These fossils may be possibly one of the most amazing scientific discoveries of our lifetime. The remnants of a brown-crusted petrol burn. Yet, how did this insectosaur reptilian aviary beast get here? Through zillions of years, random chance, and the process of evolution. At least, that is what a fool would say. How could something with an obvious design not have a designer? A design, being the airplane wreck, has a definite designer, being the engineer who originally wrote the plans for the plane. Or in other words, something that was made always has a maker, or a designer. Another name for the argument from design is the teleological argument. The teleological argument can be summarized as follows. Every design has a designer. The universe has a complex design, therefore the universe had a designer.
Design is dead, otherwise one must explain who designed the designer.
Here is a man who has had his faith shaken by the age-old question, who created God? There is no good answer for that question. At least, that is what a fool would say.
The answer to this question is really quite simple. God was never created. He's eternal. Atheists often like to debate against the existence of a God that we, as Christians, don't actually believe in. We don't believe that our God was created. So to ask who created him assumes something that we don't actually believe in the first place. It's sort of like when atheists say, how could Christians believe in a God that flies around and shoots lightning? A good response to this would be something like, I think it's great that you don't believe in a God like that. I don't either. Most atheists, including Dawkins himself, like to respond to the teleological argument with two arguments, the Anthropic Principle and multiple universe theory. Most would consider the definition of the Anthropic Principle to be the observable universe has a structure which permits the existence of its observers. And it's sort of wordy, so I'll try to make it a little bit more simple. The universe has very specific laws that govern it, from nuclear forces, gravitational forces, to the oxygen concentration of the Earth and its proximity to the moon or sun. These constants have to be the way they are in order for us to live. Here, the Anthropic Principle can be used to say that while it's statistically unlikely for life to be possible here on Earth, the fact that we are here shows that life overcame those odds. However, the observable universe has a structure which permits the existence of its observers. This is a statement that is true by necessity or by virtue of its logical form. If it feels like a repetition or an obvious redundancy in wording, that's because it is. In logic, we call this a tautology, which again is a statement that is true by necessity or by virtue of its logical form. So you see, the Anthropic Principle doesn't tell us why or how life originated, it just tells us that life exists, something we kind of already knew. This also does nothing to discredit the teleological argument. This then brings us to the second argument used to destroy the teleological argument, multiple universe theory. Multiple universe theory is the idea that multiple universes exist, potentially even an infinite number of universes, that all have their own space, time, matter, energy, and physical laws that describe them. Many atheists will use this to explain that while it's statistically unlikely that life could exist, in a reality with infinite universes, a few of them are bound to be able to sustain and create life. The question you have to ask is, what scientific evidence is there that multiple universes exist? There isn't any. Reality that we can discover through scientific process has all pointed to a finite universe. So this also fails to do anything to discredit the teleological argument.
The Anthropic Principle the principle that we have to be in a universe capable of giving rise to us, plus the principle of the multiverse, provides at least an interim, satisfying explanation in a way that a creator couldn't possibly be a satisfying explanation.
Dawkins believed that these weak arguments are a satisfying alternative to an intelligent designer, even though the argument of the Anthropic Principle and multiple universe theory don't demonstrate any logical or scientific issue with the teleological argument. Yet he finds them satisfying. But what does he have to say about religion?
Religion teaches us to be satisfied with not really understanding. Every one of these difficult questions that comes up, science says, right, let's roll up our sleeves and work on it. Religion says, oh, God did it.
Atheists end up having to rely on a blind faith that lacks evidence. Again, the arguments that he presented against the teleological argument fall flat on their face. We as Christians should never have blind faith. Instead, true faith is based on evidence. Dawkins doesn't believe that the word faith is compatible with evidence, but John Lennox, in his debate with him, is going to give him some insight into why that is definitely not the case.
When you say faith is rational and evidence-based, I mean, if that were true, it wouldn't need to be faith, would it? I mean, if there were evidence for it, we only need to use the word faith when there isn't any evidence.
No, not at all. I presume you've got faith in your wife. Is there any evidence for that?
Yes,
on which you base it? Yes.
Plenty of evidence.
As funny as that clip is, the reality is many Christians have blind faith, or in other words, a faith that is built without evidence. And the Bible actually warns against having a faith that is like this. The Bible even provides a concise definition for faith in Hebrews 11, saying, "Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen." Faith is built on evidence. Paul even says that the knowledge of the truth leads to godliness. In Titus chapter 1, Paul states that the purpose of writing the entire book of Titus is to further the faith of God's elect and their knowledge of the truth that leads to godliness. Or in other words, he's writing to increase their faith and make them more godly via the truth. Peter writes that, "But in your hearts honor Christ the Lord as holy, always being prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that is in you, yet do it with gentleness and respect." We are called to be able to present the truth to others with gentleness and respect. Paul also writes in 2 Corinthians chapter 10 saying, "We destroy arguments and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God, and take every thought captive to obey Christ." Destroy every argument, take every thought captive. If you would like to learn more about the topic of science and God, I would strongly recommend reading the following books. I'm going to put a link to the debate between Richard Dawkins and John Lennox. It's definitely well worth watching. And after that, you should go turn off YouTube and study. Seriously, stop watching videos.